Okay, everybody. So for this chapter, we're going to talk about a continuation of it, where we'll look at domestic terrorism. The homegrown American jihadists, and also some maybe right-wing groups that have participated in domestic terrorism here in the United States. Now we look at kind of the definition of what a terrorist is, especially here in the United States, and it's actually set forth in the Patriot Act. It's an act involves acts dangerous to human life that are in violation of the criminal laws of the U.S., appears to be on purpose, appears to be intended, used to kind of intimidate a civilian population, influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, to affect the conduct of government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occurs primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. Where we're going to look at the jihadist extremists first, and then we'll go into some of the right wing extremism that has caused some very real and polarizing thoughts here in the United States. Islamic extremism is an adherence to a fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. We've talked about that. It potentially includes the promotion of violence to achieve political goals. A lot of the people who are radicalized into some of these thoughts have been radicalized in prisons, mosques, over the internet by looking at bomb making guides, YouTube speeches, social media, and in some instances also PlayStation and Xbox, where these were forms of communication between people because the government wasn't necessarily able to monitor these conversations as part of the Patriot Act. One of the first instances is the Fort Hood shooting that happened in Texas in 2009. Nidal Hassan, a U.S. Army major and psychiatrist, shot 13 people and injured more than 30. He was found guilty in all 13 counts of premeditated murder and 32 counts of attempted murder. And he's actually sentenced to death and is on death row here in the United States. He entered the Guns Galore store in Kylene, Texas on July 31st, 2009 and purchased the FN-57 semi-automatic pistol that he used to the attack on Fort Hood. According to eyewitnesses, he had gone around the desk in the medical center, bowed his head, and then started shooting, and was eventually shot by military police but survived. He was an American citizen. He was born in Arlington, Virginia. He was a doctor, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist. He expressed some concerns about the actions of some of the soldiers he was evaluating as a military psychiatrist, especially some of the maybe the abuses that they created when some of these soldiers were in the Middle East. Not going to really get into that. There's documentation and stories about that you can always look at. Days before he opened fire at Fort Hood, he asked the supervisors in the Army, legal advisors, how to handle reports of soldiers' deeds in Afghanistan and Iraq that disturbed him. He was investigated by the FBI, and he was exchanging emails with Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a major player in kind of the jihadist world. And he was in communication with al-Awlaki in a lot of forms of communication, mostly by email. The Boston bombers on April 15, 2013, two homemade bombs were detonated 12 seconds and 210 yards apart at 2:49 near the finish line of the annual Boston Marathon, killing 3 people, including a young man who was, I believe it was 8 or 9, injuring 7 other people as well. In addition to this, MIT police officer Sean Collier, who was ambushed by the brothers in an attempt to steal his gun, was shot and killed a couple of days after when the brothers were on the run. Boston PD officer Dennis Simons was injured by a hand grenade in the shootout with the brothers and died from his subsequent injuries April 10th of 2014. Who are the perpetrators? There were Chechnya American brothers, the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, who was a naturalized citizen, and his brother, who was named Tamerlan Tsarnaev. And for all kind of the investigations that we're going through, it seemed that Dzhokhar was a pretty normal assimilated American citizen, small time pot dealer. A lot of positive things were said about him. He is currently sitting on death row in kind of the legal processes as they're determined whether or not he's still going to face a death penalty. His older brother Tamlin, had a little bit more of issues trying to assimilate. He was a boxer. He attempted to make the U.S. boxing team for the Olympics, but he had a problem with the law and some of the things that were came up in his background check when he was trying to become a U.S. citizen, kind of prevented from that U.S. citizenship from going through, and it was a kind of a hiccup in his attempt to become an American citizen. He was the subject of an FBI investigation in 2011 due to his travels to Russia and captured text messages that were sent to his mother. He found it difficult, applied for U.S. citizenship, but was held up due to that FBI investigation, was kind of took umbrage with the American way of life and its preference of Israel. Like I said, he was an aspiring boxer, won the Golden Gloves, which is like a tournament that are held in each state for amateur boxers. He wanted to be on the Olympic team, but he couldn't because he was an American citizen. He watched many videos that were on YouTube, and like we said, remember, that's how like a lot of these individuals are radicalized. He was eventually killed in a shootout with police in Watertown, Massachusetts, and was also ran over by his brother when he tried to escape. Like I said, Dzhokhar was a naturalized American pot dealer, kind of that hipster look. He attended UMass Dartmouth, heavily influenced by his brother, no really overt radical leanings. But then he was eventually captured and sentenced to death and is currently sitting in AD Max Super Prison, which is the most secure federal prison here in the United States, awaiting his death penalty, awaiting his fate. San Bernardino, on December 2nd, 2015, Zayed Razan Farouk and his wife Tashfeen Malik were a married couple who met on a online dating site. Syed was a worker at the the County San Bernardino Department of Public Health, so he was one of those individuals that used to go around to the restaurants and check out the cleanliness of the restaurants. When you see the A in the window of the restaurants, a lot of that is derived from an inspection that is given by a county health inspector. He was a devout Muslim. And Maliku's wife was a lawful permanent resident from Pakistan. Guns were actually purchased by Farouk's neighbor, who was also radicalized. Sorry about that. So scratch that. Radicalized. And he was They were both radicalized by listening to, watching, reading Islamic propaganda, including Inspire magazine, and watching videos that were produced by Al-Shahabab, as well as sermons of Anwar al-Awlaki. Both were killed in shootouts with the police. We know about the Pulse nightclub. Now, I put this in here. I think it's proper to address what happened, but I don't know if truly this was done in jihadist actions, or whether or not this man was just, had these really, really large delusions. Omar Mateen was a 29-year-old security guard who killed 49 people and wounded 53 inside Pulse nightclub, which is a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Like I said, I don't really know his motivation. Was it in the name of his feelings on jihad, or was he one of those individuals that was trying to maybe make a name for himself? Either way, what he did was absolutely horrible, and we still, maybe feel the effects of it today. But I was kind of struggling in putting this in there, but I thought I'm going to err on the caution on the concern of having full disclosure in some of these teachings. So let's go ahead and talk about it. He was born in New Hyde Park, New York. He became a person of interest in May 2013 and July 2014 when he made comments about me being a member of Hezbollah, having family connections in Al Qaeda. He had ties to Nidal Hassan, who was the perpetrator of the Fort Hood shooting, and the Tsarnaev brothers, who were the perpetrators of the Boston Marathon bombing. Like I said, I don't know if this was true. but it doesn't matter. It still like was a horrific event that happened. So, in a 911 call that he made after the shooting began, he swore allegiance to ISIL and said he was triggered by the U.S. killing of Abu Wahib in Iraq the previous month. He later told the negotiator that he was out here right now because of the American-led interventions in Iraq and in Syria, and that the negotiator should tell the United States to stop bombing ISIL. Um, in some of the investigations, it was found that his connections were false, that he was making it up. But there's several aspects of kind of mental illness that he had, where former coworkers of Mateen had said that he talked a lot about killing people, and he had hatred for black people, women. He didn't like Jews. He didn't like Hispanics, nor did he like gay or lesbian people. So kind of almost hit everybody there, hit the whole gamut. But yeah, it's one of those things where I wasn't really sure we could really tie it to domestic terrorism, but this is outwardly straight out a hate crime. But I felt it was suitable to put into the discussion anyway. And to honor the people that passed away, I think it's right to talk about it. So, we've also had domestic terror incidents that have happened with people who weren't practicing Islam. One of the ones is the Oklahoma City bombing. An ex-Army soldier in 1995 named Timothy McVeigh parked a rented Ryder truck full of explosives in front of the Alfred P. Murrah building in downtown Oklahoma City. He was about to commit mass murder. He set off a bomb. The death toll was devastating. 168 lost, including 19 children, as the Ryder truck was parked right next to the daycare center. When Tim McVeigh was asked if he felt bad about the children, he said a bit, but they were collateral damage. He had developed a hatred of the government due to during his time in the Army, and after reading a book called The Turner Diaries. Now, don't ever look at The Turner Diaries. It is a waste of documents. It's very, conspiratorial, and it's not a thing that, we have freedom of press, we have freedom of print. It's not something you want to read. His beliefs were supported by what he saw as the militia's ideological opposition to increases in taxes, the passage of the Brady Bill, which limited weapons, assault weapons, and all that, and was also further reinforced by incidents that happened at Waco and Ruby Ridge. There's going to be videos in the module about Ruby Ridge and Waco. Ruby Ridge happened in 1991, 1992, and Waco happened a year before in 1994. So kind of go ahead and watch those. They're not too long in length, but I think it's interesting to take a look to see how some of these incidents motivated Timothy McVeigh to act out. And he was even at Waco during the incident that happened. So it is addressed in the video, that, and I want you all to watch it. We also had other domestic terrorist attempts, incidents. El Paso Walmart shooting in August of 2019, where Patrick Crusius, who wrote a manifesto and later posted it on 4chan, in which he cited a supposed Hispanic invasion of Texas and simply was trying to defend my country from ethnic and cultural replacements brought on by an invasion as motivation. So another hate crime, right? So, and this is a perfect example of what a domestic terrorist incident is. And I think all of these, going all the way back to when we originally started talking about Fort Hood, Fort Hood, Boston, Orlando, Oklahoma City, they're all terrorist activities. They're all terrorist incidents. And then we finally come up to January 6, 2021, where a group of Donald Trump supporters participated in an insurrection. A mob of 2,000 to 2,500 supporters of Donald Trump attacked the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. They sought to overturn his defeat in the 2020 presidential election by disrupting the joint session of Congress assembled to count electoral votes that would formalize President-elect Joe Biden's victory. And out of that, there was 5 deaths, 1 from gunshot, 1 from drug overdose, and 3 from natural causes. At least 138 police officers were injured, 73 Capitol police officers, and 65 Metropolitan Police Departments. So the people that protect the Capitol, and then the people that protect Washington, D.C. So that's kind of what I want to talk about with this section, give you some illustrations. Terrorism just isn't international, and we do have aspects of domestic terrorism. Okay, thank you.